Zoom lenses offer us versatility at the expense of image quality. But how much better is the image quality of a prime over a zoom lens like this? Let's find out. So prime lenses are fixed focal length lenses. They come in focal lengths, for example, 24, 28, 35, 50, 85, and a range of others from wider to longer. They give us better quality images because they have less glass in them. They are less complex. They do not need to zoom in and out. So there are less glass elements, and the light passing through has less distortion applied to it as it goes through those different elements. That gives us better image sharpness and better contrast in most cases. They are also much faster generally. A prime lens might be an f1.4 or an f.8, whereas the equivalent high-end zoom lens would probably start at around f2.8. That means they're more ideal for low light and in particular low light video shooting. Zoom lenses, however, are more complex but much more versatile. That complexity comes from all the extra elements required to take a zoom, and the longer the range of that zoom, the more elements you're likely to find inside them. That makes them heavier, that makes them sometimes more cumbersome to use, but they are much more versatile. But how much difference is there in image quality between a mid-range zoom lens and a mid-range prime lens? Zooms are great because we can get away with taking one or two with us on our journey out to shoot. Primes, however, we might need to take 3 or 4 to cover the focal lengths that we require. We will also have to change that lens continuously, opening up the sensor to the possibility of sensor dust and generally slowing us down. But is the image quality that we get out of a prime that much better than we get out of a zoom? In this video, we'll explore this a little bit more. I've taken 2 of my Sony lenses down to my favourite location in Durham and tested them against each other. The lenses are middle-of-the-road lenses, average sort of Sony lenses that pretty much anyone might buy. They're not top-end lenses, they're not what you might call professional lenses, but they're both good quality lenses. The prime is the 85mm f1.8, not the G Master, not the new 1.4. This is the bog standard 1.8. It's a great little lens and I picked it up for around £350. And the zoom is the 24-105, again a mid-level f4 zoom lens that has a reasonably good balance between quality and cost. I took them down to my favourite location and I set the zoom to 85mm, I set a fixed shutter speed, a fixed white balance, and I shot through all the available apertures on those lenses. That was a couple of days ago. I've dropped them into Lightroom and let's have a look in detail at how much difference there is between the image quality of a prime and a zoom. Let's get into Lightroom. So here we have the images in Lightroom, and as you can see at the top we have in green the 24-105 zoom lens, and in red at the bottom we have the prime lens, which is the 85 f1.8. I've also given the star ratings here, so the 1 star is at f4, 2 stars at f5.6, 3 stars at f8, 4 stars at f11 and 5 stars at f16. f22 is also at 5 stars here. And again on the prime lens, starting with the 1 star at f4, but I've also got f2.8 and f1.8 for comparison. So I thought the best thing to do first of all is just to compare the images at f5.6, which will be an average aperture. There's not going to be any effects of diffraction here. So this is the 24-105 at f5.6 and this is the 85 at 156. The 24-105 is at 87mm. That's as close as I could get it to 85mm. You can't be 100% accurate, but that's close enough, I think, for the basis of this test. So if we go to the XY comparison, on the left we have the 24-105 and on the right we have the 85mm. As you can see, there's a very slight difference in exposure, but we won't worry too much about this. This is more a look at how sharp the images are compared to each other. And the way to do that, I think, is just to simply zoom in on this building. Those of you that follow me will know that I use this location quite a lot, and that's just purely because of the amount of detail in the shot. So this is the 24-105 zoomed into 100%. Let's go to the 85mm and zoom that in. And you can see there's a difference. At 5.6, even at 5.6, 5.6, the prime 85mm is significantly more sharp. You can see it in the brickwork, you can see it in the details in the window, you can see it in these little bricks above the window. If we go into 200% at this, and 200% on this one, and there's a very clear difference there. Just for reference, the IBIS and the optical stabilization was switched off on the 24-105, so there's no stabilization affecting this image. Both images were shot from tripods, and sometimes stabilization can have an effect if the camera's on the tripod, so they were switched off. But as you can see there is quite a striking difference. Not much so in contrast. I would say the prime is slightly more contrasty if we zoom out. I would say the prime is a little bit more contrasty overall, but relatively minor differences in contrast. However, in terms of sharpness, there is a clear difference at f5.6. So let's go to f8 and have a look at that. And we'll compare those side by side. So we got on the left the 24-105 and on the right the 85. And again, let's just zoom in. And this is at 200% this time straight away. And again, you can see there is quite a significant difference there. The detail is much, much sharper, particularly in the brickwork. And if you look at this area of rough brickwork here, you can see there is quite a significant difference. Now, let's bear in mind, this is at 200% on a 61 megapixel camera. So that difference might look dramatic close up, but if you're printing anything under sort of 30 by 20 inch prints, you're probably not going to see a lot of difference. And I would imagine you could probably apply a little bit of unsharp mask just to sharpen this up anyway. But for those sort of purists that do say prime lenses are sharper, in this particular case, you can certainly see the difference. So there's one other little comparison I'd like to do, and that is the 85mm at its widest aperture, which is 1.8, and the 24-105 at its widest aperture, which is f4. And that's quite interesting. I would say that at f1.8, the prime is very slightly softer than the 24-105. Very, very little in it. There's a slight color shift as well. That might have been a very slight color shift during the actual exposure, during the time that I took the images. Let's just zoom back to 100% on each of those. And I would say they're very, very comparable. At f1.8, the 85mm is losing some of that biting sharpness that it has as you start to close down, and they're very, very comparable here. But of course, you've got an extra 2 stops of available light capability with the 1.8. But overall, at maximum apertures, they're very, very similar. But as you start to stop the 85 down, you start to see the differences creeping in. So, is a prime sharper than a zoom? Well, this is a very specific test using very specific lenses. And really, I just wanted to demonstrate that at the same level of expense for these lenses, the same level that they're marketed at, the prime is definitely sharper for the same focal length. It might not be the case through every scenario. An expensive zoom may well be sharper than a cheaper prime. If you're buying lenses in the equivalent price brackets, then I feel that the primes are going to be better. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a like would be fantastic and a subscription would be even better. And I will see you in the next one.